Voilà, I think we are all present. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar. Today we are going to talk about the main type of contract in international trade. My name is Carole Monet. I work for hub.brussels and I'm in charge of helping the Brussels company to export in sub-Saharan countries in Africa. I'm pleased to welcome again Christine Destexhe. Thank you, Christine, for accepting our invitation. For those who were present last week, Christine explained us how to limit the risk in an international commercial contract. And today, I think is going to be the next step. We are going to follow up by talking about the main type of contract in those international trade. Before I give the floor to Christine, let me give you some practical information. So for this webinar, we will try to keep around 1 hour and a half, something like that, maybe a little bit more, but we will try to respect this time. And of course, we hope we are going to have many different questions that you would like to have answered. So please don't hesitate. Just ask your question on the question tab on this platform. And if at the end of the webinar, you still have some question, of course, do not hesitate to ask the question and Christine is going to answer them. Don't take any notes because at least the presentation of Christine will be available on our website, or my colleague are going to send it to you if you just ask for it. So now I give the floor to Christine to talk about the main type of contract in international trade. You have the floor, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, Carole. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm very pleased to give this webinar concerning some examples of common contracts in international business. Why do I speak about that subject? It's because this is my life. I spent more than 25 years to negotiate and to draft contracts of all kinds, only in international business. It's really my specialty. So I do it for small and medium companies mostly, or startups, so for very small businesses. And I used to be also international development managers for different companies in the past. So I would like to share here my experience and also my legal knowledge, because I'm a lawyer, but I also I studied in diverse business schools. So I have those two heads, one legal and one commercial. So what are we going to learn today? I'm going to explain what are the different agreements during negotiations. Sometimes we can conclude contracts, but with or without a final agreement at the end. So there are many different types of contract during negotiation. I will also speak about the general terms and conditions, because that's another form of contract, very common. And at the end, I will speak about the common contracts in international business, such as commercial agency agreement, distribution agreement, license agreement, franchise agreement, and joint venture. You might have questions about each of these types of contracts, so please write them in the chat, or I think it's the way it's mentioned on your screen. And the question will be asked by Carole at the right time. So every time I will speak about one of these contracts, I will answer to your questions. And I would like this webinar to be extremely interactive. So please write your questions freely on the chat. During the negotiation, so there's no final contract yet. We are still negotiating, and negotiations, mainly in international business, might take months, even years of negotiation. I hope not, but for a big contract, it might take years. what are the different documents during the negotiation? First of all, offers or quotations or proposals, counter proposal, new proposals are very common during negotiation. You must understand that when you make an offer, it means that you commit to execute that offer. So it is a commitment. As soon as you counterpart, your customer has said yes, yes in a mail, yes during a phone call, whatever, the contract is concluded at the time he says yes, I agree with your offer. So a contract may be just an offer with an acceptation, no matter how it is accepted.
Christine, I think we have a little problem. I don't know. I don't see your main screen. So is it possible to share? Yeah, your
Yes,
screen.
yes. I'm glad you tell me. That's strange.
Sorry, I think it's very important for you to have
Yes,
the
of course,
follow and to see exactly what Christine talked about. So we will try to resolve this problem as soon as possible.
Carol, I see the screen. I saw the screen of Christine. Now I see the screen of Christine. So the
Okay,
problem,
so all the
Carol, should be on
participants see the main screen.
Yeah,
because I don't see the main screen. I have two little screens, but I don't know if it is just for me or.
No, I see it correctly. So
also it's
for
correct.
everyone.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
no
So
issue.
okay, thank you, Christine.
Maybe the attendees can write like a small note in the chat, just confirming that you see my screen. My slide now is commercial offer. So is it what you see?
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's okay.
No, yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, they see it. We have a reply for our customers.
Yeah,
so
I have all the reaction because we have many different. Thank you for telling me.
So everything is okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so an offer can be written quotation sent by email, but it can be verbal, like during a trade fair. It can be a catalog, it can be a mail, it can be also a prototype, it can be drawings, it can even be a pro forma invoice, which is not a formal invoice, but seen as being an offer. So it's very important to understand that your offer is a commitment unless you have limited it in the document. And we'll see how to limit your offer. So what is important in an offer? Put a date, very important. Put a validity duration. You can write, this offer is valid during 30 days. I'm sorry, this is allergies. You can also mention in your offer that you need to confirm you customers' acceptance whenever you received it, in order to be bound by your offer. Indeed, many things may change between an offer and your customer's acceptation. For example, you can be out of stock. You can have no personnel available. They might, the key person who must perform the contract might have the COVID, might be sick, out of work. So as you see, there are many risks between an offer and your customer's acceptation. That's why you need to limit your offer. And you always need to put your general terms and conditions in your offer, because as soon as your customer accepts it, there's a contract. So you must, these general terms and conditions must be part of your offer and the contract. Here are some examples, and I'm sorry I made a mistake, examples of agreements concluded during negotiation. The most common is a confidentiality agreement, which is named most commonly non-disclosure agreement, even NDA. So when we speak about an NDA, you specifically mention a confidentiality agreement. We'll speak about it. I will also speak about the temporary exclusivity of negotiation. Also, something very common is the letter of intent. We'll speak about it. And also Memorandum of Understanding. So in, I would say, the common way of speaking in business, we speak about NDA, LOI, M.o.U. So very common. So first, what is a confidentiality agreement? Let's start with examples. When you make a quotation to a customer, many times you need to show how you perform your expertise, what is the contents of your product, how you build your product, how you manufacture. You need to explain in details your expertise. And that's why by showing your expertise to a potential customer, you are disclosing very sensitive and valuable information that your customer may use for himself, or he may show to one of your customers, of your competitors, in order to ask, are you able to do the same thing for less? So actually, a prospect or a customer is the most dangerous person to spread valuable and secret information. So you really need to pay attention to that. That's why in many cases we sign an NDA with customers. But in the other sense, there are many customers who have found a great invention, who has a great expertise, but who are looking for subcontractors, and they need to ask to different subcontractors who have the ability to build, to manufacture the customer's inventions, but only one subcontractor will be chosen at the end. So it means that the others have the information, can use the information, have the ability to manufacture the product, but won't have the final contract with that customer. So these customers like to sign also confidentiality agreement. But these agreements are not, I would say, 100% sure. Why? Because it's very difficult to prove that someone has disclosed a sensitive, a secret information. How to prove that? Where is that information from? How to evaluate the damage we have further to an information disclosure? And that's why it's not enough. A contract is not enough. You need to not to show all your expertise. You need, for example, to show documents, but keep it back at the end of the meeting. So try to, I would say, limit the range of information you give to your counterpart. Another example of agreement made during the negotiation is a temporary exclusivity of negotiation. So you commit to negotiate only with one company at a time. Why is this interesting? It's sometimes offers require a lot of time to make, to write, to analyze, to develop, because sometimes we need to develop a whole expertise before being able to make an offer. And actually, if a customer would ask to many suppliers, some suppliers would, I would say, disagree about making an offer because it takes too much time. But if the customer says, okay, I will negotiate only with you during 1 month, you have a kind of a priority And if at the end of the month we haven't reached an agreement, then that temporary exclusivity of negotiation will end. So there's an exclusivity during 1 month to negotiate. This is really for difficult, heavy quotations. Another example is the letter of intent. A letter of intent is not a letter, and it contains no intent, actually. So it's a real contract. It's just the title who doesn't mention it's a contract, but it is often a contract. Why? Because it's the content that determines if it's a contract or not. What is a letter of intent? Is a very short document, extremely synthetic, with bullet points saying I would say the 2 or 3 main points of agreement in the beginning of a negotiation or in the course of a negotiation. Is an embryo of a contract. So, for example, you are in a trade fair. You are meeting a good distributor. That candidate is ready to sign something with you. And you agreed during the meeting, during the trade fair, only 3 points. It will concern that territory. For example, Republic of China. It will concern only 3 main products. This one, this one, this one. And the manufacturer, the Belgian manufacturer, will commit to offer the prices of last year, but not the increased price. So there are some agreements, but not all of them. So we'll make a letter of intent with only 3 points, which is the embryo of a contract, and the parties will still negotiate the rest of the contract up to the end. So you may ask, well, are we commit? Are we bound by that letter of intent, or do we remain free to go out of the letter of intent? Actually, it depends on what is written in the content. Personally,
yeah, Christine, I have a question. According to the letter of intent, that means the point that have been negotiated before, I mean the embryo, like you say,
yes,
are not going to be negotiated later. So it's a kind of it's an accord. So each part are okay with those different points.
Sometimes people are happy with the letter of intent and won't make any further agreement. That happens. Why not? But because a letter of intent is an embryo, all what haven't been agreed, all details that haven't been agreed might lead to some problems because there is no agreement on other details.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, we need to apply the applicable law to see what the law would say, because as I explained last week, what the parties will have the priority on the law. But if there is no details, we need to apply the law. So it might take times. You know, more a contract is detailed, less problems you will have. But
Okay.
a letter of intent can be enough. It doesn't mean that you don't make any business. You can just make letter of intent. Yes. So are we bound or not by that letter of intent? It depends on the content. If I write a letter of intent for a supplier, I will write something that binds the customer. He doesn't have the choice to change his mind. But when I write a letter of intent for a customer, I put extra clauses to let him go without any consequences, any damages to pay. So there's no unique definition. It depends on what is written in the agreement. I don't know if it's understandable.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yes.
For me, it's clear. I don't know if we have some question for the moment. No question, so we can continue.
Okay. The last example is a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. The MOU is, I would say, more than an embryo. It's a baby, very young baby, not born, but still in his mother's belly, but I would say bigger than just a letter of intent. It is a summary of all points of a contract, but written in a very synthetic way and without much details. While a letter of intent is just a few points, a memorandum of understanding might have 30, 40 different points. For example, it would be the subject, I would say duration, the duration of an agreement. Duration, 2 points, 3 years, that's it. While in an agreement would say the duration will be 3 years from that date to that date, but the parties may terminate the agreement according to that condition, these conditions, blah, blah, blah. So that is what we see in an agreement. In a memorandum, is much shorter. But it can be seen as an agreement. As I said last week, an agreement can be expressed anyway. So it can be just bullet points with a few words. And during commercial missions, there might be also MOU day. I don't know if you have seen that in some commercial missions. MOU day, it's the parties who met and reached some agreement could sign an MOU during this mission, because they will have, I would say, the decorum around them, quite key, well-known and politicians around them, plus certain visibility in the newspaper, blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's always interesting to sign Memorandum of Understanding during these missions.
We sometimes have them, exactly, during some big economic mission like the ones with the princess, for example. We have a day in which different party, maybe the country where we are, and also the Belgian company can decide to sign some kind of MOU together. And yeah, it's very visual. You have communication around that, and it's very.
In some countries, it's very efficient, because myself, for example, I said, hurry up, we need to sign, we need to find an agreement, and we will summarize that very fast. I will summarize it in my hotel. I will send you a draft before the MOU day, because we will have the opportunity to sign it during the MOU day. We will have journalists, we will have, you see, and actually everybody, me as well as the customer, was extremely in a hurry to go faster in the negotiation because of that date. So it helps very much to go faster. So I kept here a slide from last week, but it's to explain the general terms and conditions. So a contract can be a document with clauses following each other consecutively, or it can be an order form with tables, a few words, be synthetic, and general terms and conditions in appendix or on the other side of the document. Usually these general terms and conditions are written very small. Sometimes it can be in character 3, 4, 5, extremely small. So people were sometimes wonder, why is it so small? Actually, it's to discourage people to read them. I mean, there's no other reason, because less the parties read the contract, faster will be the conclusion. That's why it's written in a very small characters. In addition, it shows to the customer that the conditions are the same for everybody. So they have the feeling that these conditions are fair because they are imposed to everybody. But it's not the case, actually. Usually we put in general terms and conditions very strict and severe clauses that I would think no one would accept if they would read them carefully. But what is the value of a general terms and conditions? Exactly the same as a contract. So don't believe that because it's written in small, it has less value than a normal contract written in normal characters. Carol, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, my question was, is it legal to write those general terms and conditions so small and so,
Yes.
because sometimes, of course, no one read them because it's too complicated, or we don't have time because it's too much to read. Is it legal to?
Yes, it's legal. It must be readable. But actually character, when it's well printed, or if you receive them by email on a PDF document, you can increase the size of it. So actually you have the freedom to read them, to take the time to read them. And that's why you are supposed to read them. Although maybe 90% of the people never read general terms and conditions. And this is a worldwide way of making business. So don't believe that you see that only in Belgium or in Europe. You see that all over the world. It's almost, I think, last century or in the 19th century, it was already the case. So it's quite common.
Okay.
So let me explain the difference between specific clauses and the general terms. Businesses put in the general terms what is common to all customers, and put in their order form what is specific to each customer. So what is specific is the list of products or services, the prices, the payment terms, the delivery date, the delivery location. This is specific to one customer. All the rest can be put in general terms and conditions. So general means common to all counterparts. You have two types of general terms. One company may have both. The general conditions of sale, which are imposed to all customers, and the general conditions of purchase, which are imposed to all suppliers. So try not to confuse both of them, because the content is totally different. You may say in one, toward your customers, you may say, oh, the delivery term is not mandatory. We'll do our best efforts to try to deliver on time, but if we're late, you're not supposed to require any compensation or damage, blah, blah, blah. On the other side, towards your suppliers, you will say exactly the contrary. You will say the delivery date must be strict and respected. In case you are 1 day late, you must pay a set penalty of blah, blah, blah a day, etc. So totally contradictory clauses according to the counterparts you are dealing with. So how to enforce your general terms? It means that you are an exporter and you would like your general terms and conditions to apply. So there are 4 conditions for that. The first thing, your customer must acknowledge your general terms at the latest when he concludes the order, the contract. So it means that you need to put them, even in a PDF document, with your offers in all your quotation, etc. You need to put them automatically in all your order or with all your contracts. If you send your general terms with your invoice, many businesses, many companies send the general terms only with the invoice. It's too late. These general terms won't be enforceable if you send them at that time. You need to send them before. That is the first condition. Second condition, these general terms must be effective. Don't put in your offer, this offer is subject to our general terms and conditions that you may ask us at any time. No, these conditions must be part of your offer. Effectively, the whole content. Sometimes you mention a website. You can find our general terms and conditions on our website. Well, the thing is, you don't have the proof that your customer have access to your website at the time of the contract. You don't have the proof that the content of your conditions were these ones when your customer accept your quotation. So it means that it's always best to put your conditions in a PDF document in all your mails. So you have the proof that he has access to these general terms and conditions at the time you send them an offer or at the time they conclude the order. These conditions must be readable, even if it's small, if it's well printed, if it's well scanned, it's okay. But on the contrary, it's not. And they must be comprehensive. You must know that the legal wording is usually seen as comprehensive, although there are many weird words, but okay, that's so. But sometimes it's a question of language. For example, you have a customer in Germany and you send your general terms and conditions in Dutch. Your German counterpart doesn't understand Dutch. So if he doesn't understand Dutch, the general terms and conditions won't be enforceable. It won't be possible. But concerning B2B, the B2B relationship between French-speaking and Flemish-speaking businesses, you're supposed to know the other national language. So most of the time, we consider that in a B2B relationship, it's understandable. So it depends if it's a national or not language. Most of the time, I must say, people speak English. So if you have a proof that your counterpart speaks good English, then there's no problem by sending him English general terms and conditions, even inside Belgium or with German customers or Italian, etc. The most important is comprehension. Here, yes?
Yeah, can I come back a little bit to the general condition again? Someone wants to know if we need a kind of checkbox. So we have to agree this checkbox before we continue the contract. So you have sometimes
what does he mean by checkbox?
So you have to, you see these little cards like this, you have to check and say, okay, I agree with the, before you continue.
Okay, that's an opt-in acceptation of the general terms and conditions. So that's the usual way of doing e-business. It's by accepting the general terms and conditions, but you must have a proof that you internet customer has agreed on that content at the time of acceptance or at the time of order. And that's the real problem is, okay, it's done on the screen, but you don't have any proof afterwards that he has accepted these conditions. That's why I would advise that in the order confirmation, which is automatic just after a purchase on the web, you send the content of your general terms and conditions back to the customer just a few seconds after, proving that these content is the ones he has just accepted.
Yeah.
So you need to try to have as many, I would say, proofs, which is not easy on internet.
Okay.
Was I understandable?
Yeah, it was clear. Okay. For me, it was clear.
Here I would like to answer to a question that is very often asked to me. So a supplier has sent an offer to a customer with his own general terms of sale, general conditions of sale. So he will say, you must pay within 8 days. The warranty is limited to 1 year and blah, blah, blah. Okay, customer received the offer, is totally pleased with the price and everything specific to him. Then he sent back an acceptance or an order, a purchase order, but not with the general terms of sale, but with his own general conditions of purchase. So, but in his general conditions of purchase, he will say, we can pay within 2 months, the warranty is minimum 3 years, blah, blah, blah. So you have contradictory clauses in the general terms of the general conditions of sale sent to the customer and the condition of purchase sent back to the supplier. What happened? Who's going to win? Who's going to have the priority? It depends of what happens after. Most of the time, suppliers are too busy to check the general terms with the order. He's so happy to have the order that he will say, yes, great, we have the order, we will perform the contract, we will send the first invoice to our customer. So it means that the supplier is performing the purchase order, the customer's purchase order. So he agrees to put his general terms of sale back on site and to keep his customers' general conditions of purchase. So in that specific case, I would say the customer document will have the priority. If the supplier disagrees with the general terms of purchase, he will call his customer saying, oh, I'm very glad to have your order, but I'm sorry, you need to accept our conditions of sale and not your conditions of purchase. If customer agrees, then it's going to be the general terms of sale who will have the priority and not his. Sometimes suppliers may send a pro forma invoice with his general conditions of sale, saying, by paying my pro forma invoice, you expressly agree that you won't apply your general terms of purchase, but you will apply my general conditions of sale. and then we will send you the official invoice once we have received our payment. Why a pro forma invoice? It's because it's not a contract performance. So the contract will be concluded when customer will pay the pro forma invoice. I hope I am understandable.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I don't know if there are some questions. Let me check.
Yes.
No,
No.
but I have a question, Christine. So that means the terms can be, I mean, they can have some opposite term according to the customer and to the purchaser. And is it a case where they can decide to rewrite another term, maybe according to the?
Yeah, sometimes when you have contradiction between both general terms, normally there's no contract because there is no agreement on all clauses. So it's time to negotiate. But sometimes people don't even think about negotiate. Supplier will perform the customer's purchase order. So it means that it's the customer purchase order who will have the priority. If it's the customer who agree with the general terms of sale, it's going to be the general terms of sales.
And what difference do you make between a pro forma and an invoice? Who is writing who exactly?
So an invoice is always written by a supplier, but a pro forma invoice is not an official invoice. It is kind of a draft.
It's a draft.
Yes, I would say draft, maybe not, but it's not the real definition, but it's understandable. Sometimes myself, I send pro forma invoice instead of official invoice when I have doubt about my customer's ability to pay. It means that if I send him an official invoice and he doesn't pay, I need to pay the VAT and the invoice is taken into account in my turnover, tax turnover. So I would like I would say when there's a risk of non-payment, I try to limit my cost by not paying the VAT, by sending first the pro forma invoice, and then I will send him an official invoice as soon as I got his payment.
Very important. So that means you have to, the document have to be clearly, I mean, it's a pro forma. You have to write somewhere, it's a pro forma and not the definite invoice.
Pro forma must be in the title, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, so it's very important to, okay.
But it can be used in other contexts. A pro forma invoice can be seen as an offer. A pro forma invoice can be made for the transport documents, etc., etc. So there are many uses of pro forma invoices. So what are my advice concerning the general terms? Always put your general terms in appendix of your offers and orders, even if it's made by mail or on a platform, etc. It's part of your documents. It should be automatically part of all your documents. You must say that I would say in an obvious place that you offer a new purchase order or your sale agreement is subject to the general terms and conditions. You may ask your customers to sign the general terms and conditions in the beginning of a commercial relationship, and you can say these conditions of sales will apply to all future orders made by the customers. Yourself, try to check if you are not bound by the general terms and conditions of your buyer. Otherwise, you will have to apply them instead of yours. And when you disagree on some clauses in general terms and conditions, you don't have to write on the general terms and conditions. All clauses which are in your order form will always have the priority on the general terms and conditions. So for example, it's written in your general terms and conditions that the payment must be made within 8 days. Then and you negotiate that your customer may pay within 2 months, you can put that clause in your order form, and you don't have to erase what is written in the general terms and conditions. Now I will speak and pass through the common agreements in international business. And actually, I have chosen only 5 of them. What concerned the sales agreement, we spoke about that last week. That's why I did not mention it here. And also, all I explained last week concerned also the services. That's why I won't speak about them here. That's why I have chosen 5 of them: the agency agreement, the distribution agreement, the license agreement, the franchise agreement, and the joint venture agreement. Maybe some of you have already questions, specific questions about one of them. You can write them in the chat, and then Carole will select them according to the contract I'm speaking about, and will ask the right questions at the right time.
Yes,
Okay?
exactly. So please, the participant, feel free to ask a question about one of these different contracts, and we will read the question in the moment when Christine is going to explain about the contract. So feel free. Let me see if you have some.
I will not explain the advantages and disadvantages of all of them, because Vincent Ripé explained that a few months ago during another export talk. So I will only focus.
Yes, and all the video are available on our website, just to remind it for the participant. Exactly.
I'll start with the commercial agency agreement, which is very common. I would say the term agency or agent is really used all over the world, and as in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. Well, the American customers usually use the word sales representative to mention an agent, but the term agent exists also in the United States. So sometimes there are confusions between words, but mentioning actually the same status. So what is an agent? An agent can be a physical person or can be a company, and the job or the activity of an agent is to find customers, and depending of the agency agreement, he might just find them, but he may maybe negotiate with them, he may conclude agreements, but he does it always in the name and for the account of your company. So they usually are chosen because they are very well introduced in a specific market, because he knows personally you targeted customers, and actually you choose agent because of his expertise and specific network in a sector or in a market. He doesn't buy anything, he doesn't sell anything under his name. He has a power of attorney. He has a mandate to represent you. It means that when he concludes an order with a customer, actually it's made with your name on. He uses your own documents, your own order forms, your own contracts. As soon as the local customers have paid you for the contract he actually made under your name, he get a commission. That commission is not I would say a hidden envelope on the table. Commission is really something you invoice to the company, and if your agent is in Belgium, he invoices with a VAT. So commissions are actually constitute his turnover. So it's extremely common. You have thousands of agents per country, very common job. So you need to sign with your agent an agreement. You may say, well, I have an agent and we never sign any agreement. Okay, an agreement can be verbal. An agreement has not to be written. But when it's verbal, in the case of an agent, actually you lose some rights and you have more obligations than when you sign a contract, depending on the contract. Let me give you an example. One of my customers asked me a specific agent agreement for France. He had found a good agent in France. He was very happy, but he had some doubt about his ability to sell and his professionalism. So he asked me a contract with a probation period d'essai. That doesn't exist, probation period. But I told my customer, I said, what we can do is just a 1-year agreement. And if at the end of the year, he has reached a certain amount, a certain turnover, then we will foresee that that agreement may continue during 3 more years, if he has reached a certain objective. He said, very good idea. Same, actually, it reaches same objective than a probation. Okay. And actually, I tried to limit the agent's right in the contract, what is legal, because the agency agreements are subject to, in each European country at least, to the local law, which is mandatory. Well, so I need to be, I need to respect the local law. And 9 months later, he called me and he said, oh, I feel very sorry. I terminate the contract with my agent, but his lawyer, his French lawyer, is requiring 2 years of damages, 2 years of commission, because I have decided to terminate that agreement. And I said, well, don't worry, because as you remember, it was a 1-year contract. So what you need to pay is the three months left, because you end at 9 months later, so 3 months. And he told me, well, what I decided is not to show you contract. And I thought that if I have no written contract, then there will be no contract at all. And I said, no, because actually you mails, the payment of your commissions, the fact that you send him samples, that the fact that you send him brochures and samples of you, all the forms, etc., means that actually you have taken him as an agent. So there's an agreement, even if there is no written agreement. But the problem is, when you have no written agreement, is an undetermined, an indefinite term agreement, à durée indéterminée. In France, the courts, la jurisprudence, the courts have most of the time decided to give 2 years compensation, even if the contract has lasted less than 2 years. So it means that because you haven't signed any written agreement, you will need to pay much more to your agent than with a written agreement. So I would really encourage you to always sign a written agreement, or at least mention in an email the limits of your agreement.
Yeah, thank you. And we have some question about this part. So the first question is, so I try to read. So an agent, it seems in a country in the Middle East like Saudi Arabia, when an agent agreement is signed, the agent has an executive forever or for all the product in the country. It's very complicated because I just read what the company writes.
Is that a question or it's an affirmation?
Yeah, it's a question. So I think what he wants to know is when you sign an agreement, when an agent sign an agreement, is it just for the product?
Yes, actually, I will show my next slide, and I might answer that question in my next slide. If not, if the person is not happy with my answer, he can ask again. Okay.
Okay, and another question again, maybe you will answer it when you will explain. It's according to the commission of the agent. Is there some place where we can have an idea about which commission can be given to an agent?
Okay, I'll take these questions and I will answer point by point, because my objective now is to explain what are the key issues to be negotiated in an agency agreement. And this is valid for all the world. Okay? Okay, here are the main points in an agency agreement. You can inspire yourself from that list before you meet any candidates, because these answer to most of his questions. The agency agreement, is it for an exclusive area or sector or not? So we can limit an agency agreement to a province, to a country, to a continent, to a city, no matter. You do what you want. It's just a question of negotiation. But you can also limit the sector. For example, you are a brewery, you make beers. You can say to one agent, okay, you will promote my products in hotels and restaurants, and to another agent in the same area, in the same territory, you will tell him, you may promote my beers in supermarkets only. So you can target different types of clientele and sectors within a limited area. You can limit your service or your products. You can say, I have a whole range of products. Some products are meant to be sold in that type of customers, for that type of customers. Another range is for another type of customers. You may limit that in your contract. Right and obligation of your company, you have to say what are you going to do for your agent. For example, are you going to give a training? Are you going to give him samples, brochures? Are you going or prototypes? Are you going to help him making the offers? Are you going to make the offers and not your agent, or your agent only and not you? Are you going to invite him in your booth during trade fairs? Are you going to finance trade fairs, etc., etc.? You can also put your agent's obligations. How should he present your products, etc. But pay attention that he's an independent. So if you write too many obligations, the contract may be interpreted as a labor agreement. So pay attention that you're dealing with an independent, and you may not impose too much obligations because of that. What is the commission? Is it a fixed commission for example, 1,000 euros per contract, or 10% of commission. It can be an increasing commission or decreasing. It can be the first customer is the most difficult to do. So you can say, okay, it's going to be 20% commission for the first contract made with a new customer, and then your commission will be only 5% for the following orders made by that customer. Or it can be increasing. More you sell, more you will be rewarded. So you will have higher commissions to motivate you to sell as much as possible. So to answer to the question, what is the amount of a commission? It is totally free. Totally free. How will you compute your commission? In fact, you need to analyze the context. What is your margin on the products? What is your margin to make the product competitive on the market? Sometimes your product may increase or must decrease to be attractive. So depending on your margin, you need, well, the commission must be just a part of your margin. What are the efforts to do to make a contract? Some contracts are very easy to make with customers. I mean, it's recurrent, it's easy, it doesn't take time. Some others may take months of local visits, of invitation, etc., for a restaurant, etc. So it means that making one deal would cost a lot for an agent. So it means that well, all these elements would influence the amount of commission. I would like to say that I have a blog where I write many articles, and some of them concern only the agency agreement, some other the distribution agreement. So I will send you the address of that blog, and you will find many articles, very short, it's only one-page articles about these subjects, explaining how to compute commission, etc. What is important?
Thank you, because I think the question of the participant was to know if, as a new agent, for example, you don't have any idea about which kind of commission you can ask. So,
Yes.
if you just want to be a good agent, is there a place where you can have more information about the same commission?
Oh, yes.
In the same conditions?
Actually, you might be disappointed because there is no I would say source with specific percentage or specific amount. That doesn't exist. Sometimes you have agents saying, you know, in my business, it's usually 20% commission. You know, they are good sellers. So it might be a trick. That might not be true. They seem to be very sure of themselves, while it's not true. You see? So don't always believe what they say. That is my experience. What is also important is the basis of calculation. You really need to say on what you compute the commission. Is it on the goods only, but excluding transport, excluding packaging, excluding the maintenance contract, or does it include them or not? So it must be obvious the way you calculate the commission. And when do you pay them? Are you computing all commissions every day, or at the end of every month, or every quarter, or every semester? You are totally free to discuss with your agent about that. And what is going to be the negotiated terms depend of the balance of power. I mean, if he's the best agent of the world and you dream to have him, then you have less power than if you have an extremely good product or service, and new agent is dreaming about having you as a part of the product he represents. So a balance of power will really change the different issues in a contract. You need to put in the contract how you will how the order will be sent to you. Sometimes you give him an access to your ERP platform, and he can put directly the orders, or does he need to ask you your previous acceptance before he sign an order form, etc. Does he have the power of attorney to sign in your name and for your account? Or once he has the customer, must he send you the draft of the purchase order and you sign him, or you confirm it directly with the customer? Well, he's independent. Sales objectives, you may put sales objectives, but if he doesn't reach the sales objectives, it's not a serious fault. It cannot be seen as a serious fault leading to a termination. But as I said, as an example, you can say the contract will last 1 year or 2 years, and if the sales objectives have not been reached, then they will be the contract will not continue. The thing is, in many contracts we put illegal clauses, such as supplier may terminate the contract if the sales objectives are not reached without compensation for the agent. When we put that, and many contracts put that, it's not legal because we don't respect the agent's right to have a set compensation in case of termination, but it's very often written in contracts because some agents are naive, they don't know the law, they don't know the rights, and they sign something and they say, oh, I signed it, and well, not good for me, but that's the way it is. So there will be no claim for anything afterwards. That's why many suppliers put illegal clauses in their contract. The reporting, so what does he have to communicate to the supplier regularly? For example, what are the prices offered by competition? What is the stage of his prospection, etc. Intuitu personae, it means that do you keep that agent as a company because of Mrs. or Mr. X, or it doesn't matter who is the individuals behind the company, you take the company. So it means that if you have chosen one person in particular, you need to mention it in the contract. Duration and the different causes of termination and all the usual terms of an agreement. Here are the main points you find in an agency agreement. Carol, you don't have any other questions?
One a little bit. So the agent is working with obligation of results.
No, it's not necessary, but usually we put that when there's when there's an exclusive territory or an exclusive sector, because when we give him an exclusive sector or territory, we prohibit ourselves, we prevent ourselves to sell directly. So it means that we block a market. That's why we require usually objectives. But if the agent doesn't reach the objectives, it cannot be seen as being a serious breach of contract. I don't know if I am understandable.
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's pass through the distribution agreement. A distribution agreement is when a distributor buys the products, but it can be also services. You can pay for services and sell them locally. For example, I'm giving webinars. I'm sorry, I let Wallonia, but it's anywhere in Belgium. I sell, I give webinars, but I can have distributor in France promoting my services that I will directly perform in France. But the distributor will invoice the customer, but I will remain the one who will perform the contract. So distribution agreement is possible for products as well as services. Okay. So what are the key issues to be negotiated in a distribution agreement? Here I will pass faster on subjects we have spoken concerning the agent, because there are many common issues. So do we give an exclusive territory or sector or not to the distributor? Do we limit the services or products represented as the agent? The right and obligations, what the supplier is supposed to do, what is the distributor supposed to do. It's much longer, much more detailed, the right and obligations, because a distributor will store the products, will maybe install the products, will have to offer the after-sale services, will have to offer services, will have to provide parts, we have to perform, etc. So it's much longer, and he's also in charge of the local promotion. So there can be also a marketing plan in the contract, all the initiatives he must take, the amount of investment he must make, etc. There will be the purchase prices. How much will he pay for the products or services he buys? The payment terms, the delivery terms, the warranty, because you offer that to your distributor. The advised resale prices, it must not be fixed. Otherwise, it's considered as being an agreement on prices, which is forbidden in Europe as well as in Belgium or in other European countries. So competition between distributors must be totally free. It means that a customer in Europe may buy from any customers he wants. So, for example, you have a German customer who realizes that it's less expensive to buy from a distributor in France instead of a German distributor. He may go to France and ask for the products. The only thing we can prohibit in a contract is to ask to the French distributor not to promote the products in Germany, but a German customer may buy in France. So that's what we call the passive trade. Means you stay home, you're not the one who take the initiative to see the customer, but the customer who takes the initiative to see the local distributor. So you will put also in your contract the marketing plan, all the sales initiatives, the services I said, the monitoring, sales objectives, once again, who must be realistic, clear, controllable. For example, you can say a certain amount of items per quarter. You can say a certain amount of sales, or that turnover per month. Or it's much better to impose, I would say, objectives on small periods than for the whole year. Many contracts speak about, oh, you must have that objective at the end of the year. It means that you need to wait 1 year before checking, controlling the objectives. While if you put them by quarter, even if the first 6 months are without any objectives, then you can control your distributor or your agent more closely, and you can stop the agreement, or you can discuss about a new marketing plan on the right time without waiting too long. Duration, causes of termination, etc. That's a distribution agreement is quite long because there are many things to say. Carol, are there any questions about the distribution agreement?
No, not yet. We can continue.
License agreement, it's much more common than what we think. Actually, when we supply goods around Belgium, it's easy. Transports are easy. But sometimes, if you want to export to Brazil or to other continents, your products or your services might not be attractive anymore for different reasons. Transport, the import duties, blah, 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 may sometimes double your price, even triple your price at the end. So what is very attractive in Europe might not be attractive in another continent. So instead of manufacturing your own products here or performing your services here, you may be tempted to give your expertise to a local company in another continent or another country and be paid with royalties, in French, redevance. Because anyway, you will not be able to go to another continent because your products are not attractive anymore. So it's much better to let another company do your work and be paid by royalties, which is another source of revenue. Personally, I made many license agreements for food companies such as chocolate company, etc. Because when you give the expertise, it's more fresh, it's local, the prices remain available. In the building factory, to make certain type of concrete items, also in services. For example, myself, the webinar I gave you, I can train a Brazilian trainer, and I can explain all what I'm telling you, and he will translate it in Portuguese and give my course in Brazil and pay a set amount like, I would say, 100 euro or a percentage of what he will earn in Brazil in exchange of the expertise I gave him. So license agreement can be interesting for products as well as services.
We have a question.
Yes.
I think we have to go back to the distribution. So the question was to know if in a distribution contract, we may put a condition to stop the contract if certain commercial targets are not reached.
Yes. Yeah. I always do it, mainly when I offer a territorial or sectorial exclusivity. As I said, the objective, I like to put them per month or per quarter, so I can control my distributor more, I would say, deeply and frequently. I always put in contracts that if he doesn't reach the objectives, the parties must meet within 15 days, must try to find the reasons, must try to find solutions. And if, for example, 3 months later, he haven't reached the objectives yet, then the contract may be terminated. I write that, but it's I would say not totally legal, because usually a distributor have damage compensation when we stop an agreement without serious breach of contract. And the fact that the objectives are not reached are not considered as a serious fault, a serious breach of contract. Did I respond to the question?
Yes, I think so.
If not, please ask again. I can explain once again, no problem. Concerning the license agreement, I hope that everybody understood the interest of a license agreement. So the company giving his expertise to the other is named licensor, and the other is named licensee. So what do we find? What are the key issues to be negotiated in a license agreement? Many things in common with the other contracts. That's why I go faster and faster. Concerning the exclusive territory or sector, concerning the limited range or all range of services or product, concerning, yes, the terms of transmission of a know-how. For example, I am a factory company, chocolate factory, and I would like a Brazilian licensee to make my own chocolate in Brazil. So how are we going to do? I am going to invite him in Belgium and give him like a 2 months, 1 month training so he will be able to make my chocolate, or will I go to Brazil? Who's going to buy the equipment needed? Who's going? Should I put someone on site to control, to help them, etc.? So we need to explain all that, the rights and obligation of each of them, who's going to do what. What is the licensee supposed to do on site? The sales objectives. So as I said, for the agent and the distributor, same thing in a license agreement. What is the amount of fee or royalty to be paid on site? So sometimes it's a set amount per year, no matter how much the local licensee is producing or performing. It can be a percentage, it can be a set amount per contract. Usually when you don't have the control, you cannot say how much he did on site. It's better to impose a set amount, so there is no control necessary to see the production or the performance. The control, it's quite important, because if your licensee is not honest, he might do much more than what he declared. Sometimes it's some company even put one of their representatives on site permanently, well, so-called helper, but actually to control the production. What the regular reporting means, what is the license supposed to send you as information, regular information. Intellectual property, very important, that issue, that clause in the contract. For example, a chocolate manufacturer has no patent on his chocolate, has no protection unless he's except his brand or logo, but a recipe cannot be protected. So in the contract, we will say that chocolate recipe or that chocolate way of manufacturing is mine. This is my property. Even if the rest of the world can imitate me, you, my licensee, will not have the right to imitate me, not have the right to continue your business if the contract is terminated. So we need to put that in the agreement, because otherwise you're not protected. Duration, the causes of termination, all that are more common. A franchise agreement is a concept very close to the license agreement, but this different. You are a chocolate manufacturer. If you have a license agreement, it means that the licensee has other businesses. He might make chocolates for other licensors. He might make its own chocolate besides yours. It's just part of his business, and he's still working in his own name, brand name, I would say. In a franchise agreement, actually, the franchisee doesn't do anything else than performing services or manufacturing your products, and he does it under your brand name. Actually, you transmit the franchise covers the whole concept. Well, the most known franchise businesses around us is, of course, McDonald's, Pain Quotidien, Exquis, AD Deleuze, etc., etc. Most of the time it's a B2C concept, but you can find franchise agreement in the B2B business. For example, it can be a consulting company. Instead of having its own subsidiaries under the whole thing, it can be a franchise agreement, and it remains in the B2B business. And actually, it's much more common than what we think. We know the huge brand names everywhere, but myself, although my customers are only small businesses, I have been asked many times to do franchise agreement, but only for 3 or 4 franchisee, like in a closed area, or it can even be I would say a very original restaurant, and there's like a franchisee in Valencia who loves that Belgian concept, and he asked to be the franchisee only in Valencia, and he has 3 or 4 restaurants with the same brand name. So sometimes a franchise agreement may not be something extremely big. It can be very on a narrow market, in one city only. That's why even small businesses can be concerned by that type of contract, although it's not as usual as the agency agreement or the distribution agreement. Here are the different points in a franchise agreement. It's most of them are like the license agreement, so I will not pass through. I will only speak about 2 main issues that are different than the license agreement in Belgium, but it's also the case in other countries such as France, Italy, etc. We need to have a 1 month cooling off period. What is the cooling off period? In French, c'est période de réflexion. That must last 1 month. from the time a contract has been agreed, really concluded, there's nothing that will be changed. All the information has been given. Actually, the candidate franchisee must have 1 month to reflect, to make his calculation, to see if he's going to be able to respond, to perform all obligation he has. So he must have everything in hands, the market research, the list of costs, etc., to make his mind. If you don't respect that 1 month period and you don't have the proof that you have given that 1 month cooling off period, then the licensee can ask, can require the termination of that contract and can require to be indemnified in case of termination. So that is why it's quite important to respect that 1 month cooling off period. The joint venture agreements, this is something a little bit different. Instead of having a local infrastructure, many Belgian companies prefer to join another company, and there can be 2 or 3 or 5 associates to make a common subsidiary, a common affiliated company. And each of these companies will bring its own expertise to make something new. So, for example, I made that joint venture agreement concerning a company who was able to make vending machine, distributeur automatique, but the equipment inside the vending machine, he made it very big. And actually, the partner, the joint venture partner, was making cooling chambers. So he was expert in the cooling technique. So both of them, the one providing the vending machine technique and the other, the cooling technique, both together made a joint venture to offer huge vending machine in cooling chambers. So most of the time we join someone who has a complementary expertise to offer something new or more complete to the local market. And the joint venture is most of the time settled in the country where your market is, where your customers are. So what do we put in a joint venture agreement? First of all what is concerned by the bylaws. Bylaws means les statuts. So the name, the subject, the activity, the management, the different mandates, the inputs of each party, who's bringing what, sometimes how it is evaluated, how the management of that new JV will be organized. Also, what is very important is to mention the business plan, the financial plan, all what you need to create a new business, how you will transmit in the, I would say, sensitive, secret information between you and your own know-how, the faith of the intellectual property. I mean, everyone keeps his intellectual property, but the joint venture might invent or build a new expertise, a new invention. So who is going to own what? Solutions in case of deadlock, in case of litigation, in case we don't get along anymore. How are we going to welcome new partners inside? How are we going to exclude some of us if it doesn't go well? The duration, the different causes of termination, etc. So here are the main issues. I know it's quite long, but I would like these slides to be your source of inspiration before you propose anything to a potential agent, distributor, licensee, franchisee, or partner in a joint venture. Carole, are there any questions about?
Not any question for the moment. Let me check with Laurent. Do we have some question, Laurent? No. Laurent is reading something. But for me, it was really clear. I don't know if there will be another question again. But
yeah,
for me,
there was a kind of side question which was regarding the contracts to take over other companies, which was not really in the scope of this webinar. Are there kind of type contracts for taking over other activities, other companies, or?
I may ask. I may answer.
Yes, if you have an answer, it's outside the webinar, but it's a question that we have. So
there's no specific question about that.
yeah, we have a question.
Yes,
but I think it's outside the target of the webinar. But
yes, but the subject is quite large. So what is the specific question?
it's just
There's no.
Are there type of contract for taking over a business, or
yes, of course.
Someone
So that's what we call in the frame of merger and acquisition.
Yeah, it was.
Of course, we need to make a contract. There are even several contracts. There are a contract before the due diligence, a contract after the due diligence, because you don't buy a business from a day to another. You need to pass all through the financial, technical, legal, contractual documents, the documents of the company you would like to acquire. But before you do that, you need to have an agreement on the way you will evaluate the company. And after the due diligence, there might have been things you have found during the due diligence that will influence the contract. So that's why it's usually in 2 phases.
Okay, we still had a question that I didn't forward to Carole, which was a question specifically on Belgium. And the question was saying, in Belgium, it seems a distributor has always right for a compensation where a contract has been signed, whatever the reason. And yes, is it right that there are specific regulation that are more strict in Belgium protecting the distributor than elsewhere?
Yes. And it concerns also the exporters. I will tell you why. So in Belgium, it's in the code, le code de droit économique, the economical law code. There's a 1 chapter concerning only what we need to indemnify in case of termination without serious fault of a distribution agreement, but it's for exclusive distribution agreement or quasi, almost exclusive distribution agreement. So it's quite narrow. It's a 1-page law, and it indeed, the law foresees many compensation. So it needs to have a prior notice. I would say a reasonable prior notice before termination. I would say usually it's 2 months per year of collaboration. You need to pay for the customer base you acquire from the distributor. You need to pay all the cost in case you need to fire people. You need to pay the cost in case you need to stop like a renting contract for you storage that was dedicated to the products, etc. So the law mentioned different indemnification. Why? Because in Belgium you have a lot of distributors because of the Antwerp harbor and Zeebrugge harbor. And actually, because of these two harbors, you have a lot of distributors in Belgium. And that's why in 1961, the Parliament decided to foresee a lot of compensation for their own distributors, because when a foreign manufacturer stops a contract, the company from a day to another has nothing left to sell. So it's a real drama for them. That's why that law exists. But in distribution agreement, what we are used to say most of the time when we are a Belgian exporter is the Belgian law will apply to this agreement. It means that we are offering to the rest of the world a very advantageous law for distributors. That's why personally I put in my contract different things. The Belgian law, okay, except two laws. The chapter of the code that the specific chapter concerning these indemnification, and also the chapter concerning the 1 month cooling off period, because I don't want to apply 1 month cooling off periods too long. But in Belgium, the Belgian courts, like cours et tribunaux, Belgian courts, must apply that law. That's why I need to foresee arbitration clause in the contract. So there's no judges, no state judges involved, and the arbitrators may not are authorized not to apply the laws I have excluded from my my contract, while the judges must apply them. But I don't know if I'm clear, because the answer is complex. So I'm sorry. I can exclude these laws if I'm out of Belgium, because these laws are mandatory, like the driving law, if it's in Belgium. But outside Belgium, we can do anything we want if it's not a Belgian judge who's involved in that in case of litigation.
Okay, thank you. Can you share the screen with your address and your email?
Yes.
And yeah. Okay, thank you.
So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to write me.
Yeah.
If the question is not too complex, I will answer.
Yeah, I still have one last question, Christine, and then I leave you. Sorry for that. The last question was to know how it was possible to get paid for a license by the beginning of a contract. I think you talked about that, maybe just to remind it again for the.
Yes. So the fees we ask to a licensee are totally free. You can ask prepayment or like a starting fee. You can ask fees during the time. It's totally free, and actually the amount will depend of the balance of power. You know,
Yes.
If the licensor is dreaming about the licensee, and the licensor it's not well known and actually is weak towards, I mean, compared to the licensee, he will not ask much. But if it's the contrary, he has the super products, the super services, well known, and the licensee is just begging to get to be a licensee, he's ready to pay. So all that depends.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for my colleagues, because it's very important to say that I'm not alone for this webinar. I have many different colleagues behind the screen. Thank you, Christine, of course, for your presentation. And I remind you that all the participants can receive the presentation and also can keep in touch with Christine if you still need more information. And I also want you to not to forget to give us the link of your blog, Christine, because you
Yes,
talk
yes,
about blog
yes.
for
I don't
more
forget.
information
I
about.
will not
Yeah,
forget.
yeah. So please do not forget to do that. And I thank everyone for this webinar. See you next time, and bye bye, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye.